Providence, Rhode Island, Thursday, November 14th, 2024. The clock on the courthouse wall reads exactly 9:41 in the morning when a silver Bentley Continental GT glides to a stop in the handicapped parking space directly in front of the municipal building. The vehicle does not display a handicap placard. It does not display Rhode Island plates. What it displays is a small rectangular tag affixed to the rear bumper, diplomatic plates registered to the French Embassy in Washington, D.C. The driver does not emerge immediately. She is finishing a phone call. She is checking her lipstick in the rearview mirror. She is doing everything except what any ordinary citizen would do upon arriving late to a court summons. Hurrying. The city of Providence woke up that morning the way it always wakes up. Coffee brewing in triple-deckers across Federal Hill. Nurses changing shifts at Rhode Island Hospital. Students crossing the pedestrian bridge with backpacks slung over their shoulders, breath visible in the November air. This is a city of working people. A city where a parking ticket can mean choosing between groceries and gas. A city where men and women set their alarms for 5 in the morning and don't stop moving until long after dark. A city where the law is supposed to mean something. Inside the courthouse, the usual Thursday morning crowd fills the gallery benches. They are the backbone of America. The people who keep the country running while others sleep. In the front row sits a man named Gerald Morrison. He is 74 years old. He served 2 tours in Vietnam. He worked for the Providence Department of Public Works for 41 years, fixing potholes and clearing snow and never once calling in sick. He is here today because his registration expired 3 days before he could afford to renew it. The ticket is $115. He has $47 in his checking account. Next to him sits a young woman named Keisha Washington. She is 23 years old. She works the overnight shift at a warehouse distribution center, loading boxes onto trucks from 11 at night until 7 in the morning. She is here because a traffic camera caught her rolling through a stop sign at 6:47 a.m. on her way home after an 8-hour shift, so exhausted she could barely keep her eyes open. She cannot afford the $200 fine. She cannot afford to miss work to be here, but she came anyway because that is what you do when you receive a summons. You show up, you face it, you say, "Yes, Your Honor," and you hope for mercy. Behind them, scattered across the worn wooden benches, sit a dozen other citizens of Providence. A mother of 3 who parked in a loading zone for 4 minutes while she ran inside to pick up her daughter's prescription. A college student whose parking meter expired while he was taking a final exam. An elderly woman who made an illegal left turn because the GPS on her phone gave her wrong directions and she couldn't figure out how to fix it. These are not criminals. These are not threats to society. These are ordinary people who made small mistakes and are now here to answer for them. These are the people who fill Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom every single day. These are the people he has served for over 40 years. People who say please and thank you. People who apologize even when they don't need to. People who believe, despite everything, that the system will treat them fairly if they just follow the rules. The double doors swing open, and a woman walks in who has never followed a rule in her life. Margot Devereaux enters the Providence Municipal Courthouse the way she enters every room, as if she owns it. She is 44 years old, though she would never admit to anything past 38. Her blonde hair is pulled back in a flawless chignon. Her Chanel blazer, ivory wool hand-stitched in Paris, costs more than Gerald Morrison's monthly pension. Her Hermes Birkin bag, crocodile leather, 18-karat gold hardware, costs more than Keisha Washington will earn in the next 3 years. Her heels click against the marble floor with the precise rhythm of a woman who has never once been forced to rush for anyone. Behind her walks a man in a navy suit so perfectly tailored it seems to have been painted onto his body. His name is Richard Ashworth III. He is a senior partner at Ashworth, Pemberton & Crane. a law firm based in Georgetown that charges $2,000 per hour and has never represented a client who couldn't afford it. He carries a leather briefcase that contains 17 documents proving that his client cannot be touched by American law. He has used these documents before. They have never failed. Behind him walks another man, younger, silent. His job has no title. His job is to make problems disappear before they become problems. He has never encountered a problem he could not make disappear. The gallery goes quiet, not silent. Quiet. The particular kind of quiet that descends when ordinary people sense they are in the presence of something they don't quite understand. Gerald Morrison looks up from his folded hands. Keisha Washington stops checking her phone. The mother of three pulls her purse closer to her body. An unconscious protective gesture, as if wealth itself were a physical threat. Margot Devereaux does not acknowledge any of them. She does not see them. To her, they are furniture, background noise. The kind of people who exist to serve coffee, to press clothes, to disappear into service entrances so that important people don't have to look at them. She takes her seat at the defendant's table. She does not sit the way ordinary defendants sit, hunched forward, nervous, small. She sits the way a queen sits on a throne, spine straight, chin lifted. One leg crossed over the other with the casual elegance of a woman who has never once doubted her place in the world. And then she does something that makes the court reporter's fingers pause above her keys. She pulls out her phone and begins scrolling through Instagram. In the third row of the gallery, a woman named Diana Molina is watching all of this with a kind of frozen disbelief. Diana is 26 years old. She is a registered nurse in the intensive care unit at Rhode Island Hospital. She works the night shift, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., 3 nights a week, sometime 4 when they're short-staffed, which is almost always. She chose nursing because she wanted to help people. She chose the ICU because that's where the sickest patients are, the ones who need help the most. She has held the hands of dying patients when their families couldn't be there. She has performed CPR until her arms shook. She has cried in the supply closet and then washed her face and gone back to work because that is what nurses do. 3 weeks ago, Diana was inside First National Bank on Westminster Street making a car payment. She had saved for 3 years to buy that car, a 2019 Honda Civic with 62,000 miles on it. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive. Just a reliable vehicle that would get her to and from work without breaking down in the middle of a snowstorm. She was inside the bank for 11 minutes. When she came out, her car was gone. Not stolen, destroyed. A white Bentley Continental GT had run a red light at the intersection of Westminster and Dorrance at approximately 47 miles per hour. The Bentley struck Diana's parked Honda with enough force to push it 12 feet onto the sidewalk. The driver's side door was crushed inward. The front axle was snapped clean. The windshield had spiderwebbed from the impact, and the rear view mirror had been torn off completely and sent flying into a storefront window 20 feet away. Diana had run out of the bank at the sound of the crash. She had stood on the sidewalk, still holding her receipt, watching a woman in a white blazer reverse a damaged Bentley away from the wreckage of everything Diana owned. The woman had paused. For exactly 4 seconds, Diana would remember this for the rest of her life. The woman had paused and looked directly at her through the Bentley's windshield. Then she had driven away. No apology, no exchange of insurance information, no concern whatsoever for the possibility that someone might have been inside the car she had just destroyed. Just a 4-second pause, a dismissive glance, and the purr of a 12-cylinder engine disappearing down the street. Diana had called the police. She had filed a report. She had provided the partial plate number she had managed to memorize in those 4 frozen seconds, and then she had spent 3 weeks borrowing her roommate's car, taking Ubers to work when her roommate needed her own vehicle, trying to figure out how she was going to replace a car she couldn't afford to replace while still paying rent and student loans and the cell phone bill she needed to stay connected to the hospital's scheduling system. The police had told her they were working on it. The insurance company had told her the claim was under review. No one had told her that the woman who destroyed her car was the wife of a French diplomat. No one had told her that the woman had invoked immunity. No one had told her that she might never see a single dollar of compensation. She found out 3 days ago when she received a notice that the driver had been summoned to appear in Providence Municipal Court. She had taken the day off work, losing $163 in wages she couldn't afford to lose, to be here. To see the woman's face, to hear her explain herself. She had not expected the woman to walk in like she was attending a cocktail party. She had not expected the woman to start scrolling through Instagram. Diana's hands are trembling. Not from fear. From something much older and much more dangerous. From rage. Clerk Patricia Harmon clears her throat. She has worked in this courthouse for 23 years. She has announced thousands of cases. She has seen every kind of defendant imaginable. The nervous, the arrogant, the tearful, the defiant. But something about the energy in this room makes her pause for just a moment before she speaks. Case number 2024, TF 09731, the City of Providence versus Margot Devereaux. Charges include reckless driving, destruction of property, leaving the scene of an accident, and failure to report. Total damages claimed exceed $14,000. The defendant has entered a plea of not guilty. Judge Frank Caprio looks up from the file in front of him. He is 78 years old. He has been a judge for 43 years. He has seen everything. He has seen wealthy defendants try to buy their way out of consequences. He has seen poor defendants weep with gratitude over a $50 fine reduction. He has seen lies so elaborate they would make a novelist jealous, and truth so painful they made him lock himself in his chambers afterward to compose himself before the next case. He has learned over 43 years to read people the way a cardiologist reads an EKG. He can see the irregular rhythms. He can spot the anomalies. He can predict with unsettling accuracy who will tell the truth and who will try to slip past it. Right now, he is reading Margot Devereaux, and what he reads does not please him. "Mrs. Devereaux," he says. His voice is calm, measured. The voice of a man who has learned that true authority never needs to announce itself. "You are in a court of law. I'm going to ask you to put away your phone." Margot does not look up. "One moment," she says. Her accent is crisp, educated, the kind of French-inflected English that comes from Swiss boarding schools in summers on the Côte d'Azur. "I'm just finishing something." The bailiff shifts his weight. The court reporter's fingers hover frozen above her keys. In the gallery, Gerald Morrison's eyes go wide. Keisha Washington stops breathing. 10 seconds pass. 15. Judge Caprio does not repeat himself. He simply waits. And in that waiting, in that absolute stillness, the entire room begins to understand that something unprecedented is unfolding. Margot Devereaux finishes her post, slides her phone into her bag. Only then does she look up. Only then does she actually see Judge Frank Caprio for the first time. And what she sees does not impress her. She sees an old man in a black robe. She sees a small courtroom in a small city. She sees a system that, in her experience, exists primarily to inconvenience people who matter while failing to protect people who don't. She has been told her entire life that there are 2 sets of rules, one for people like her and one for everyone else. She has never had any reason to doubt this. She has no idea who she is dealing with. "Your Honor," Richard Ashworth III steps forward, his voice smooth as aged scotch. Before we proceed, I must inform the court that my client is the spouse of Ambassador Lucien Devereaux of the French Republic. Under Article 37 of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, Mrs. Devereaux is entitled to full immunity from criminal prosecution in the host country. I have here documentation from the State Department confirming her status. He approaches the bench and hands over a manila folder. Inside are 3 documents. A letter from the French Embassy confirming Margot Devereaux's status as a diplomatic family member, a copy of her diplomatic identification card, and a formal notice from the State Department acknowledging her immunity. Judge Caprio accepts the folder. He opens it. He reads each document carefully, turning the pages with the deliberate patience of a man who has learned that rushing leads to missing things. The courtroom waits. Margot Devereaux checks her manicure. After nearly 2 full minutes, Judge Caprio sets the folder down. He removes his glasses. He folds them carefully and places them on the bench in front of him. When he speaks, his voice has not changed in volume, but something in its temperature has shifted. "Mr. Ashworth," he says, "I've reviewed these documents. They appear to be in order. Your client does indeed have diplomatic immunity under the Vienna Convention." Ashworth allows himself a small, satisfied smile. The smile of a man who has won before the fight even started. However, Judge Caprio continues, immunity from prosecution is not the same thing as immunity from accountability. It is not the same thing as immunity from the truth, and it is certainly not the same thing as immunity from this court's right to hear the facts of what happened on November 14th. He turns to look directly at Margot Devereaux. "Ma'am, I have some questions for you. You are not required to answer them, but I would appreciate it if you would." Margot looks at her attorney. Ashworth shrugs slightly. She turns back to the judge with an expression of barely concealed boredom. "Fine," she says. "Let's get this over with." Judge Caprio nods. He opens the case file. The police report is on top. It is 7 pages long and includes 3 photographs, 2 witness statements, and a diagram of the accident scene. According to this report, he says, at approximately 3:47 p.m. on Thursday, November 14th, a white Bentley Continental GT registered to the French Embassy ran a red light at the intersection of Westminster and Dorrance Street. The vehicle struck a parked 2019 Honda Civic, pushing it onto the sidewalk. The Bentley then fled the scene without stopping. He looks up. "Were you driving that vehicle?" Margot sighs. "I may have been in the area, yes. I don't recall the specifics." Judge Caprio's eyebrows rise slightly. "You don't recall whether you struck another vehicle hard enough to push it 12 feet? It was a minor incident. I assumed everything was fine." "You assumed." He pauses. "Did you stop to check?" "No." "Did you call the police?" "No." "Did you leave any contact information for the owner of the vehicle you struck?" "I didn't see the point." "There was no one in the car." The silence that follows is so heavy it seems to have physical weight. In the 3rd row of the gallery, Diana Molina is gripping the edge of the bench so hard her knuckles have gone white. Judge Caprio lets the silence stretch. 5 seconds. 10. 15. He has learned over 43 years that silence is more powerful than any words. Silence gives people the opportunity to hear what they've just said. Silence gives shame room to grow. Margot shifts in her seat. For the first time, something flickers across her face. Not guilt, not yet, but discomfort. The discomfort of a woman who is not used to being looked at this way. "Mrs. Devereaux," Judge Caprio says finally, "did it occur to you that someone might have been walking toward that car, that someone might have been inside it? That your decision to flee might have left a human being injured and alone on a sidewalk?" Margot's chin lifts. "I am not a criminal," she says. "I am not required to explain myself to you. My husband is Ambassador Lucien Devereaux. I have full diplomatic immunity. This entire proceeding is a waste of my time and yours." She pauses, looks directly into Judge Caprio's eyes. "You can't touch me." 3 words, 3 small words, but they land in that courtroom like bombs. In the gallery, Gerald Morrison, 74 years old, 2 tours in Vietnam, 41 years of public service, makes a sound that is half gasp and half growl. Keisha Washington covers her mouth with her hand. The mother of 3 pulls her children closer. And Diana Molina, 26 years old, ICU nurse, owner of a destroyed Honda Civic she is still paying off, feels something inside her snap. She stands up. "Excuse me," she says. Her voice is shaking. She doesn't care. "Excuse me." Judge Caprio turns to look at her. The bailiff takes a step forward. "Ma'am," Judge Caprio says gently, "please remain seated. You'll have an opportunity to—" "No." Diana's voice is stronger now. "No, I won't remain seated. That woman destroyed my car." She looked right at me, and she drove away. She didn't stop. She didn't apologize. She didn't even slow down. And now, she's sitting there telling you that you can't touch her? Tears are streaming down Diana's face, but her voice doesn't waver. "I work 60 hours a week. I hold people's hands while they die. I haven't had a vacation in 3 years. I saved for 36 months to buy that car, and she destroyed it in 4 seconds because she was too busy or too important or too whatever to stop at a red light. And you're telling me she's just going to walk out of here because her husband has a fancy title?" The courtroom is absolutely silent. Margot Devereaux has gone very still. She is staring at Diana Molina with an expression that might be shock, might be confusion, might be the first faint stirring of something she has never been forced to feel before. Judge Caprio raises a hand. The bailiff stops. "What is your name?" Judge Caprio asks. "Diana Molina." "Miss Molina, would you please approach the bench?" Diana hesitates, then she nods. She makes her way forward, past the rows of benches, past the waist-high wooden barrier, past the court reporter and the clerk and the bailiff who steps aside to let her through. She stands before the judge's bench, still trembling, still crying, but standing. Judge Caprio looks at her for a long moment. Then he looks at Margot Devereaux. "Mrs. Devereaux," he says, "you told me a moment ago that there was no one in the car. That may be true. But here is someone who was affected by your actions. She is standing in front of you right now. Do you have anything you would like to say to her?" Margot opens her mouth, closes it, opens it again. I didn't know." She stops, swallows. "I didn't think—" "You didn't think," Judge Caprio says quietly. "That's the problem, isn't it? You didn't think, because you didn't have to. Because you have never had to think about the consequences of your actions, because there have never been consequences." He reaches into the case file and pulls out a document. "This is the estimate from Miss Molina's insurance company," he says. "Her vehicle was declared a total loss. The payout she received was $4,200. The remaining balance on her car loan is $7,800. That means she is now $3,600 in debt for a car she no longer has." He pauses. She is a nurse. She makes $23.47 per hour. That debt represents 153 hours of her labor. He sets the document down. 153 hours of holding the hands of dying patients. 153 hours of cleaning wounds and administering medications and comforting families in the worst moments of their lives. 153 hours of work, real work, meaningful work, work that actually matters, to pay off a debt she incurred because you ran a red light. He removes his glasses, rubs the bridge of his nose. When he speaks again, his voice is heavy with something that is not quite anger and not quite sadness, but somewhere in between. "You told me that I can't touch you," he says, "and you're right. Diplomatic immunity is a real thing. It is protected by international law. I cannot fine you. I cannot convict you. I cannot sentence you to a single hour of community service. He pauses. But I can do something else. The attorney, Ashworth, stiffens. Mrs. Devereaux, he says quickly. You don't have to. I wasn't speaking to you, Judge Caprio says. His voice has not risen. It doesn't need to. He turns back to Margot Devereaux. What I can do, Mrs. Devereaux, is make a record. I can ensure that the transcript of this hearing is forwarded to the State Department's Office of Foreign Missions. I can ensure that it is forwarded to the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I can ensure that your name and your husband's name are associated with this incident in official documents that will exist long after all of us are gone. He opens another folder. I can also submit a formal recommendation to the Secretary of State that your diplomatic privileges be reviewed. Under the Diplomatic Relations Act, the United States has the right to request a waiver of immunity from the sending state in cases of serious misconduct. Alternatively, we have the right to declare a diplomat or family member persona non grata, which means you would be required to leave the country within a specified period of time. Margot's face has gone pale. You can't do that, she says. Her voice has lost its smoothness. My husband. Your husband is not in this courtroom, Judge Caprio says. You are. Your husband did not run a red light. You did. Your husband did not flee the scene of an accident. You did. Your husband did not sit in this courtroom and tell a judge that American law means nothing to him. He leans forward. You did. The silence that follows is the longest of the morning. 20 seconds. 30. The only sound is the soft hum of the fluorescent lights and the distant tick of the clock on the wall. And then Margot Devereaux does something no one expected. She starts to cry. Not the elegant photogenic tears of a woman who knows she is being watched. These are ugly tears. Real tears. The tears of a woman who has just realized that her armor has cracks. I didn't mean, she begins. Her voice is thick. I didn't think anyone was hurt. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I've never been in an accident before. I didn't know the rules. I just wanted to go home. She looks at Diana Molina. I'm sorry, she says. The words come out broken, fractured. I'm sorry. I should have stopped. I should have done everything differently. Diana looks at her for a long moment. The anger is still there. The hurt is still there. But underneath it, something else is stirring. Something that might, in time, become understanding. She doesn't say anything. She just nods. Once. Judge Caprio watches this exchange. He has seen it before, the moment when two people who were enemies suddenly become human to each other. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it is the most powerful thing that can happen in a courtroom. He clears his throat. Mrs. Devereaux, he says, I'm going to make you an offer. It is not a legal requirement. It is not something I can enforce. It is simply an opportunity. You can walk out of this courtroom right now. Your immunity protects you. I cannot stop you. You can get in your Bentley and drive back to the embassy and never think about Diana Molina again. That is your right under international law. He pauses. Or you can choose to do something different. Margot looks up at him. Her mascara is running. Her perfect composure is in ruins. But her eyes are clear. What? She asks. You can choose to make this right. Not because you have to, but because it's the right thing to do. He picks up a piece of paper. Miss Molina needs a car. She needs transportation to get to work so she can continue saving lives. You destroyed her car. You have the means to replace it. He sets the paper down. I am not ordering you to do anything. I am asking you, as a human being, as a woman who has just admitted she made a mistake, as someone who has the power to fix what she broke. The courtroom holds its breath. Margot Devereaux looks at the judge. She looks at Diana Molina. She looks at the gallery full of ordinary people, the veteran, the overnight worker, the mother of three, who have been watching her with a mixture of anger and disbelief and something that might be hope. And then she reaches into her Hermes bag and pulls out a checkbook. "Miss Molina," she says. Her voice is still shaky, but there is something new in it. Something that sounds almost like dignity. "What kind of car would you like?" Diana blinks. "What?" "I'm asking. What kind of car do you need?" For a long moment, Diana doesn't say anything. She is staring at Margot Devereaux as if seeing her for the first time. As if the woman in front of her has suddenly transformed from a monster into a human being. I don't need anything fancy," Diana says. "Just something reliable. Something that will get me to work and back." Margot nods. She begins to write. The scratch of pen on paper is the only sound in the room. When she finishes, she tears out the check and holds it out to Diana. "This is for $25,000, she says. "Buy whatever car you want. If there's anything left over, use it for whatever you need." She pauses. "I know it doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't undo what I did. But it's the best I can do." Diana takes the check. Her hands are trembling. She looks at the number written on it. She looks at Margot Devereaux. And then she does something that makes the entire courtroom exhale. She says, "Thank you." 2 words, 2 small words, but they carry the weight of something much larger. Forgiveness. Judge Caprio watches this exchange with an expression that is impossible to read. He has been doing this for 43 years. He has seen the worst of humanity. He has also seen the best. And right now, in this moment, he is seeing something that gives him hope. He clears his throat. "Mrs. Devereaux," he says, "I want you to understand something. What you just did, that choice you just made, that is not something I could have ordered. That is not something any court in the world could have compelled. That came from you." He pauses. "Diplomatic immunity can protect you from the law, but it cannot protect you from your own conscience. It cannot protect you from the person you see in the mirror. It cannot protect you from the knowledge of who you chose to be when you had the choice." He picks up his gavel. "Today, you chose to be better. You chose to see Diana Molina not as an inconvenience, but as a human being. You chose to make something right instead of walking away." He looks at her. "That is the only kind of immunity that matters." He brings the gavel down, case dismissed on jurisdictional grounds. But the record of this hearing, including the testimony, the evidence, and the resolution, will be preserved. It will be forwarded to the appropriate authorities, and it will serve as a reminder that in this courtroom, in this city, in this country, no one is invisible, and no one is untouchable. Court is adjourned. The sound of the gavel echoes through the room, and then something extraordinary happens. Gerald Morrison, the 74-year-old veteran, the man who has seen war and loss and 41 years of honest labor, rises slowly to his feet. He doesn't say anything. He simply stands. And then Keisha Washington stands. And then the mother of 3. And then the college student and the elderly woman with the GPS trouble and every other ordinary person who came to this courtroom today expecting nothing more than parking tickets and small claims and the usual grind of minor injustice. They stand, not applauding, not cheering, just bearing witness. Margot Devereaux looks at them. Her eyes are still red, her makeup is still ruined, but something in her posture has changed. Something in the way she holds herself is different. She turns to Diana Molina. "I'm sorry," she says again. And this time, it sounds like she means it. Diana nods. She doesn't smile, but she doesn't look away either. "I know," she says, "and that is enough." Margot Devereaux gathers her things. Her attorney tries to speak to her, but she waves him off. She walks toward the door of the courtroom, her heels clicking against the marble floor. At the threshold, she pauses. She turns back to look at Judge Frank Caprio. "Thank you," she says. Judge Caprio nods. "Don't thank me," he says. "Thank Miss Molina. She's the one who gave you the chance to be better." Margot looks at Diana one last time. Then she walks out. The doors close behind her, and the courtroom slowly, gradually returns to normal. Patricia Harmon calls the next case. Gerald Morrison sits back down, his parking ticket still clutched in his hands. Keisha Washington checks her phone and realizes she's going to be late for her shift. But something has changed. Everyone can feel it. For one brief moment, in one small courtroom in one small city, justice actually meant something. Not the justice of conviction and punishment, not the justice of power over the powerless, but the justice of two human beings, separated by wealth and privilege and everything else that divides us, seeing each other clearly for the first time. That night, Diana Molina goes to work. She parks in her usual spot in the hospital garage. She walks through the automatic doors and takes the elevator to the 4th floor and changes into her scrubs in the locker room and begins her shift. 12 hours later, she will walk back out to the parking garage. And she will stop, and she will stare at the empty space where her ruined Honda Civic used to sit. And she will think about a woman in a Chanel blazer who ran a red light and destroyed everything Diana had. And she will think about the same woman, mascara running down her face, writing a check for $25,000, and she will think about Judge Frank Caprio and the way he looked at both of them, and the thing he said about immunity. The only kind of immunity that mattered. She doesn't know what Margot Devereaux is doing right now. She doesn't know if the woman learned anything from what happened in that courtroom. She doesn't know if people like that can change, really change, or if they just put on better masks. But she knows this. For one moment in that courtroom, Margot Devereaux was not a diplomat's wife. She was not a woman with immunity. She was not protected or privileged or untouchable. She was just a person who made a mistake, a person who had the chance to fix it. And she took that chance. Maybe that's all any of us can do. 6 weeks later, the French embassy issued a formal letter of apology to the city of Providence and to Diana Molina personally. The letter acknowledged the incident, expressed regret, and confirmed that Margot Devereaux had enrolled in a defensive driving course. 3 months after that, a new pedestrian safety initiative was announced in Providence, funded by an anonymous donation of $50,000. The money came from a Swiss bank account. The donor requested no recognition. Diana Molina bought a 2023 Toyota Corolla with the money from the check. Reliable, fuel efficient, nothing fancy. She still keeps the receipt from that check in her wallet, not as a reminder of what she lost, but as a reminder of what she learned. That justice is not always about punishment. That accountability is not always about the law. That sometimes the most powerful thing a courtroom can do is hold up a mirror and let people see themselves clearly. And Judge Frank Caprio continues to sit on the bench in Providence Municipal Court, doing what he has always done, listening, questioning, believing that everyone is capable of choosing to be better. He has been doing this for 43 years. He will keep doing it for as long as he can, because that is what justice looks like. Not the justice of thrones and titles and diplomatic immunity, but the justice of ordinary people in an ordinary courtroom, in an ordinary city, refusing to believe that anyone is above the law, refusing to believe that anyone is beyond redemption, refusing to believe that the way things are is the way things have to be. If this story moved you, if you believe that justice should see no privilege, no title, no immunity, then share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the law is not just a system, it is a promise. A promise that in the eyes of justice, we are all equal, even diplomats' wives, especially diplomats' wives.